guys, today we're going to be talking about foundations of democracy. Topics we're going to cover are where democracy came from and what the ideals of democracy are. Ideas of democracy originated in ancient Greece. Around 500 BC, the city-state of Athens, Greece adopted a democratic form of government. All citizens were allowed to vote, but slaves, women, and men who did not own property were not considered full citizens and therefore did not have voting rights. In 300s BC, the Greek philosopher Aristotle advanced his ideas about democracy, citizenship, and constitutions in a work titled Politics. This system of democracy in ancient Greece was a direct democracy, sometimes also called a pure democracy. People come together in large meetings and vote on all issues of importance to the government. Another example of direct democracy can be found in colonial America, where town meetings were held to pass laws and make other important decisions. A direct democracy can only exist in a small community. This is important to know, because it requires the participation of all citizens to work properly. Here in the US, we couldn't send every citizen to vote on every single issue, so our government is a little bit different. The United States is an example of representative democracy. Sometimes this is also called indirect democracy or republic. The US is way too big to be a direct democracy. It's just not possible for every individual to actually vote on all the issues that our legislators vote on a regular basis. So we elect officials to represent us and they vote on our behalf. Our elected officials are held accountable for their actions by periodic elections. If citizens are unhappy with the actions of an official, he or she will not be voted back into office. Let's review types of democracies. So we've talked about direct democracy, where the people vote directly on each issue. This is also called a pure democracy. Another type is the indirect democracy, where we choose representatives and then they vote on the issues for us. So this is what we have here in the US, also called representative democracy or a republic. This is a big important vocab word, sovereignty, which means supreme power or authority. In government, the body in power has sovereignty. In a democracy, the people are sovereign. This means that the power rests in the hands of the people. In a monarchy, the king or queen is referred to as the sovereign. This means the power rests in the hands of the king or queen. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the ideals of democracy. So although there's a lot of different government structures out there, there's 5 basic concepts that all democracies have in common. They all value the worth of the individual, equality, majority rule and minority rights, need for compromise, and freedoms. Worth of the individual just means that every individual is important and the government serves them as a society. In a democracy, the government should respect and recognize the worth of all individual people. At the same time, the government should look out for the common good of all citizens. So, as an example, someone could say that enforcing speed limit laws is infringing on the people's right to decide for themselves how fast they want to drive. But in reality, this is done as a protection for all citizens, so this represents the worth of the individual. Another example could be every single citizen has a vote. Another ideal of democracy is equality, where governments treat all people equally. In the Declaration of Independence, it states that all men are created equal. Although it's commonly known that not all people have equal abilities and we're all distinct individuals, the government in a democracy should recognize that we all have equal rights and are to be viewed in the same way by the eyes of the law. For example, the Bill of Rights applies to everybody equally. The 13th, 14th, 15th, and 19th Amendments expanded equality to include more people. Majority rule and minority rights. This just means that although the majority rule, their votes will respect the needs of the minority. When people vote in elections or on laws and decisions, the majority always wins, or whoever or whichever gets the most votes wins. When voting in democracy, people should listen to both sides and vote on what is best for everyone, including minorities. So for example, even though people of the non-white race are minorities in the US, people vote in such a way that their rights are protected. Need for compromise. Politicians work together and compromise to get things done. In order for decisions to be made and agreements to be reached, compromise is necessary. A compromise mixes the wants of each side and gives each side a little of what they want and a little of what they do not want. Since all individuals are equal in a democracy, everyone's opinion should be seen as valid and taken into consideration. For example, adjusting a bill so that it will pass and both sides will agree on it. Freedoms. People have rights that the government cannot interfere with. Freedoms do have limits. One person's freedom only extends to the point where it infringes upon another person's freedom. So, for example, people have the freedom of speech in the United States and can, for the most part, say what they please. This freedom can be limited in some situations if it presents a clear and present danger to others, such as yelling fire in a crowded theater or bomb on a plane. We have the Bill of Rights to protect these freedoms. So let's review. The ideals of democracy represent what governments should do. They should recognize the worth of every individual, believe in the equality of all people, be based on the principle of majority rule with minority rights, and recognize the need for compromise. They should respect personal liberties and freedoms. Now, while no democracy does all 5 of these things perfectly, democracies are constantly growing and changing in an attempt to better serve these 5 ideals.